could, we can commence the August 21st meeting of the Building Facilities Construction Committee at 7:06 p.m. The first item on the agenda is the library.
So, in your packet, and this, at this point, is just for information, I think they were considering going for a grant, and as you may recall, the last time they were in, they had indicated that they had a sketch and that they wanted to pursue the grant based upon the dollars in the sketch, and we advised them that we thought the architect that did the original design should have a role here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think in your packet, there should be a copy of an email from Justin and the architect. I guess Charlie actually took a position with another firm and now is not really able to follow through on additional work as an independent position. So, you know, it's really just providing information for you at this point. It's not really seeking direction or input.
So, if I may.
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
You haven't heard anything from the library board?
No.
Or Justin regarding their thoughts on what they are going to do now?
No. I mean, the thresholds are fairly, you know, standard. If they exceed a certain dollar amount, the statute kicks in and they do have to go through proper design and procurement processes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly confident that they would trigger those requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a grant or not is not relevant. And, you know, the thought, I think, was that since the particular architect had experience and knows the building and the trustees and where they want to go, there would be a cost savings there with that. Unfortunately, they're not available to do that. So I did share the designer selection process with Justin, so he does have that, and the trustees can use that also.
And they are getting their windows painted and stuff? I saw work going on there.
Jeff has been down there, yes. He's
Yeah.
been down there for, I want to say 4 or 5 days. I've seen him down there off and on. So,
And who's doing it?
Jason Baker.
Okay.
I do know they didn't apply for the grant. I know the senior center was working on trying to apply for the ADA grant to upgrade the ramp and everything for the senior center. So I know there was discussion between Matt and Patrice, and because Justin wasn't going to attempt this year to go for it, that Patrice was going to attempt to try to get a ramp fixed and, you know, change the way it is at the moment. So I know they've kind of realized that they're not going to be able to go forward without having a drawing and an architect.
Did they send a window painting out to bid?
I don't,
Yeah,
this is the first time.
I have no idea. I didn't even know they were getting done until I saw Jason there, so that's how I didn't know. I did get him a quote. I don't know if it falls under or how much it was.
Right, the thresholds are at the bottom of the agenda. If you, well, not this month, but if you look at last month's agenda, those are pretty much standard links I put there. So if you want to see the thresholds, that would require competitive bidding and whatnot. You could click on the charts, the first link there at the bottom, and that will tell you, you know, the dollar amount that would require going out to bid. They may not have had to gone out to bid, but they certainly would have required prevailing wage rates for that.
No. Was this a project that the library itself was going to pay for?
And I don't know. And the library, honestly, they ask me a few questions, and I give them my, what people that I use, stuff like that, but they pretty much are self-sufficient on a lot of their own stuff. I do a little routine maintenance and check out the emergency lights and stuff like that, but for overall, their board of trustees kind of handles everything with Justin.
Okay.
Mike?
That's solely the library trustees' responsibility to building, nothing to do with the facility
my
manager?
understanding.
That's the way it's always been, yeah.
You have no facilities role there.
No, Ricky does clean it, I think twice a week, but I mean, when Mike was still here, Mike Kaczynski, there was discussion when Ricky was cutting his hours back that the library would actually go on their own completely. You know, they wouldn't even clean it, and they were fine with it at that point. So I don't know, I'm not sure whether, it's always been that way. They really don't go through us for anything. They fund all their own stuff. Basically, they ask me contractors and who I use. That's about it.
But if it's a big, project, it still is town
If
funded.
it trigger, yes.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, they can seek funds from the town or not, that's their
Right.
choice, you know.
Okay.
My understanding, they have some money that they can use for the library business, and, you know, I'm sure they can vote on how they want to use that
right.
separate, but I don't know what that dollar amount is, or,
But operational, it is a town, because the override in the budget, and that's part of.
correct.
what
The
town's-
operations,
Yeah.
they do draw from the town budget,
Right.
yes.
Mike?
Is that an assumed procedure? That they would just pick and choose whether or not they want the town to chip in and get involved in this?
I'm no expert on.
Well, I'm just
Those-
asking. because-
Those are questions probably for the administrator.
It's on our agenda item, but then there's, okay, nah, we don't need it this week. So how's that work? Is that spelled out somewhere? Something
Well,
we
they
can
have,
find?
they have the trust, the Simon Fairfield Trust. But, operational, that comes, I believe, under the, state, because that's why they needed money, and our budget was not gonna be able to fund it, and that's why we went with the only reason they were able to continue was with the override. But as far as, I mean, they have, I think, monies donated for building maintenance and stuff like that that they can use, but they still have to, I would believe, conform to rules and regs when it's, you know, a state, I mean, a
If it's a
Town.
public
public.
source
yeah.
of funding, it's
Right.
public use, they would have to comply with procurement laws. I'm comfortable answering that.
Yes.
How they would manage their personal budget or their funds, I have no idea. That's, you know, beyond what I need
Right.
to get involved with,
Right.
frankly.
But I do think Jean has, like the keeper of the funds type of thing, managing,
Okay.
I believe.
I just going back through my emails to see if I had the quote. Back on March 28th, the quote for the library windows to be scraped, sanded, all gaps caulked, and coat of primer and paint was $3,700 from Jason Baker. And then it was
3,700?
Yes, 3,700. Yeah.
You've been at it for days, too, so
Yeah.
not bad.
No,
A lot of windows. Big one.
yeah.
Did he set that scope?
I don't know. He met with Justin, so I don't know.
Just for clarification, the only reason I keep asking questions about this, because of the deal with the post office. The contractor spec'd out the exact same description you just mentioned, almost the same. However, he was told by a former administrator, you know, to do that, it's in our contract, do one coat. So he did one coat, and we suffered the results of it. So that's why I'm asking, how they're proceeding along, because if we're supposed to fund different parts, only when you feel like you need us to do it, we have no idea how you're spending your money ahead of time, so it's kind of difficult to go along with it, and you don't even know how things are proceeding. Not that they don't need, I don't think they need our position, but just out of common courtesy to.
Right.
I'm not opposed to the price that he got on the windows. It sounds like a very reasonable price in comparison to what we paid for the post office. It was 6 times as much. So, I think the price is fair, but just out of courtesy, I think as a board, we should have
Yeah.
some knowledge of what's going on instead of everybody like, I don't know.
Doing their own thing.
Well, I just want to be clear, you know, the bylaw is very clear. Our role is advisory to the Board of Selectmen, and we have a threshold of $50,000 projects or more, or special projects designated by the Board of Selectmen. It's not to say if a department or group comes before us and asks for input, we wouldn't give it for lower value projects, but we really don't have a role on something lower than those things I mentioned.
Just for clarification, I didn't say we did.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is just out of common courtesy to tell us how they're proceeding because they want our support on a larger project.
I agree with you.
So if you're looking to get an allowance from somebody and you're just blowing your paycheck each week, how are you gonna get your allowance? It's
Yeah.
just a courtesy, that's all. I'm not
It would
saying
be
we need to
nice.
control it or anything else. It's just,
Yeah.
you want support from us. I would think that we just, hey,
Right.
we finally got somebody to paint the thing. We awarded the project. It's gonna be scrape prime paint, caulk,
Right.
2 coats for $3,700. Yahoo, good deal. Good job. Instead of, what are they doing?
Right.
When they're driving by, they've been there a lot of days. How much is this costing? Yeah, but,
And if he's scraping it, is it lead paint?
well, I'm not getting into that.
Yeah.
That's the facilities manager's job.
Behind you, I'm hiding.
He's also the OSHA guy.
Yeah, that's what they tell me.
That is true.
The OSHA guy has to make sure that we provide a safe working
Yes,
environment for all people.
Everyone gets it wrapped in bubble.
Just put it out there. I read a
bit.
business card. It's got all, most of it's on the back of the
It
card.
is,
but
yeah. Opens
There's
up. It's
an
trying.
awful lot of titles there.
Whoa.
Prideful, threw me right under the bus right now.
No,
Wow.
but in all seriousness, it's just,
No, I
just
hear you.
a little information would go a long way.
It would be nice to know.
Yeah.
Somehow maybe we could pass the word.
Well, they'll probably watch the tape.
Yeah.
What did Mike say this week?
I'm happy to mention it to Justin next
Yeah.
time I see him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
And there's no opposition, it's just,
No,
We just want to
it's-
know.
I don't disagree with you, Mike. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure
No, I know
everybody
that.
understood. Yeah.
There are no other issues to be raised on item number 1. We can move to item number 2, clean energy. Very
Okay.
broad topic.
This is really an update. The LED street lights and the designation grant is, what the work with the designation grant is 100% complete. That's been fully funded and paid out and closed out with Gene's office. Thank hallelujah.
Yeah.
And we do have, as part of our original agreement with Arden, that they will be around for another year to replace fixtures, and, you know, we do get an occasional need for whether grid takes a fixture down because they replace a pole or whatever the case is, that they'll come out on a per unit basis and replace the fixture. So at some point in the future, one of the things we're considering is looking at a regional contract with a utility provider where on an as-needed basis or a semi-frequent basis, you can pick up the phone and have them come out and do that role. But that's gonna be forthcoming, where we might get a better price if we group together with some other towns. So that's kind of what we're looking at that.
Regionalization.
Yeah. And then with regard to the grant application, we have not heard back yet, but, you know, this was a month ago. This is last month's agenda. It's really the same agenda. The items that we submitted on are listed and included in the agenda, so we're still waiting to hear back from DOER whether or not we're getting funding for that. And if we do, you know, I'll update you on the progress of those things.
Any issues or questions to be raised on that particular agenda item? If there's no objection, we can move on to number 3, the Bad Luck Pond Outlet Bridge.
This project is proceeding in design phase. They've done some soil testing and they've done some land surveying out at the site, and they're initiating the design to submit to Mass DOT. There will be, you know, milestone progress prints that they file with the department, and they get design feedback as the project progresses. So when we get to those milestones, I'll give you copies of the drawings, and you know, certainly you're welcome to provide input. But I'm sure Mass DOT usually provides some pretty significant input on those progress prints. That's really it for the outlet bridge. We are looking to supplement, as you know, that was a grant. We got a $500,000 grant. We expect it might exceed that amount. We're optimistic to use Chapter 90 funds beyond the $500,000 to cover the difference, so it wouldn't be funded through the town anyway.
Municipal fire alarm?
Municipal fire alarm is something that we need to move forward on. I know it's been lingering. It's probably the next one on the chopping block for us, Adam. And
Some of the issues that I just can bring up quick, just little things like the police department, if there's ever any talk of them moving, then we gotta move a panel, and that's stuff that's really gotta be worked out and ironed out before we go. I don't wanna throw money at something that we have to go back and now have to redesign and move, you know? We've discussed it, I know the police department have had discussion about wanting a new police station and this, and so if that's gonna be the case, then the panel needs to be moved from down there. We don't have a monitoring system. They are our monitoring system, so, you know, we have to make some updates and some changes to, and figure out, you know, what the future's gonna hold, so we don't have to go back and do this a second time.
But as you may recall, we did put that out to bid one other time, and the fee is what the issue was. We only got one response, and the logic was that even the low bidder was suggesting that we take it on a phased approach. I think the fee we had originally, what was $100,000?
The whole thing, I don't even know what we have.
I
now.
can't recall. Anyway, so we're gonna adjust the
Started
fee.
off at 28, and then you went up to like 104, 108.
Yeah, something, yeah.
So we're gonna just basically put the same project out and just adjust the fee. So it's a matter of just getting it out and advertised the timeline, but if you have issues with the timeline, we may.
Yeah. No, the timeline's fine, as long as we, like I said, just little things we should think about, you know, now that I'm hearing, the, you know, discussion of, you know, the police department moving and stuff, and,
Yeah.
but I just wanna get it right the first time. That's kinda where I'm looking. I don't care if we phase it, that's fine, as long as we're phasing it.
So if that's a real thing with them moving, I mean,
If it ever happens, because their system is separate from our system. It's not all one system. That was the whole purpose of, you know, they have a small panel downstairs right next to our panel that runs up here, and so that changes things. We weren't replacing their section. You know, and when we first discussed this, there was never any talk of anyone ever building another building. They were staying there, and that was it. But now that this has come up with as at least a discussion, then, you know, that's something that really needs to be addressed and discussed, though, whether we just do, like I said, a certain phase, like those saying, of our section, and then, you know, and see what we have to do in the future for the last section. The last phase may be just tie in the police department into our panel, and then, you know, just in case something happens.
Mike?
What's the problem with leaving the system as is?
Right now, the panel itself, our panel for this part of the building is from 1978, so they're having trouble getting parts for that panel. They can't find it's like a circuit board that runs each little section. So the circuit boards are getting fewer and far between. To change out the panel to a newer style, you'd have to change all the detectors themselves. Now, the police department side, theirs is from 1992. So theirs is still in compliance, been fine. We've been really, you know, lucky with this, so. And then there's a lot of other things that happen, like our panel on our side has no label, it just says Zone 4. And then you have to just go figure out where it is, and, you know, half of it says Zone 4, could be basement, could be crawl space in the attic, could be the gymnasium. So you have to go find, you know, you go find which one it is. Usually I end up having them come out, and we test and see where the draw is coming from, and figure out which detector it is, or which, we have a lot of heat detectors in that closet there, but, so that's what we have to find, which one's faulty, and change it out, so.
What would it cost, what do you think it would run to change out the police department one after they if they ever do move.
Theirs is a lot smaller, theirs is probably, it's half the size of ours. So I probably would say 50,000, you know, just the
Yeah,
ballpark
yeah.
figure. Because theirs is half the size, we're talking 2 floors here, a gym, theirs is probably half the size with the basement part, so.
Well, I'm just thinking with everything that's stored in the building, it could be a problem if you can't figure out where the fire is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it worth putting this off for the cost of what it's gonna do to upgrade the system? If we're having a problem with the system, if they're gonna build another building, that's years
Yeah.
by the time they get through to it.
Exactly, yeah.
If they're gonna move part of their operation to a section of this building, for argument's sake,
Mhm.
that's still a year or so down the road. Is it worth waiting a year or so down the road and not upgrade that system? It almost seems like logical to correct the system and then adapt it downstairs later on. Your main panel that supplies this whole building is screwed up.
Yeah, the main panel, and that was the discussion with the, to bring it up to code would be to put the panel outside this door, the first door that we all just came in
Yeah.
today, instead of being downstairs, which the only problem with that is it's under the crawl space and the stairs that lead to the police department, so that's where that's gotta come up through the wall. But I mean, again, that was discussed
Yeah.
before, it just has to come up to code, you know.
But even if they move,
You still gotta correct the building.
Yeah, the
But
building-
but
it's
not
so-
only that, that's not gonna stay empty. I'm sure there'll be room, they'll find room to, you know, something to go
Yeah.
in down there.
Yeah, my only concern was that they monitor it when it goes off,
Yeah.
they hear it, it goes off next to them.
Right.
Where if no one's here during the nighttime, then it goes off that. You know, I mean, we can get a monitoring system for that. I mean, there's also other things, but I just know if you update, then you trigger, change
I would
different
think
codes and.
I mean, I know you get stuff
Yeah.
at home now as it is, but I mean,
Yeah.
remote access
Yeah,
to some of these alarms, I think, would be integrated into the systems now, I would think.
You can go right to the dispatch.
Yeah.
There-
Yeah.
There's somebody there
Exactly. It's a phone-
24/7, so.
yeah, it's a phone dial system, you know,
Yeah.
that's what most places have. We just have to, you know, that's all, we just have to update that. and-
I'm just concerned that, you know, whether or not it's worth pushing it off.
I mean, the
If
one
something
thing,
was to happen in there, there'd be a big problem.
and everything, unfortunately, just like Bill and I and all of you, anything you push off just costs more later on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
No?
I agree with,
Yeah.
But I thought that was gonna be moving ahead. I thought
It
that was.
is.
Oh.
That's currently where it stands. This is the first I heard of the vacate.
It's just a
This-
concern
yeah,
that,
this was just the-
that
when I
Adam
started
has,
here,
Yeah.
whether or not though he's trying to be proactive
Yeah.
and
Okay.
be,
Yep, I hear you.
But nonetheless, I agree, it will be a number of years. Let's assume they hit
Yeah.
the ground running now.
right.
Got a site selection, there'll be
Right.
design, and,
Yeah.
you know, there's a whole process.
Yep,
Funding,
yep.
yeah, that's usually a big one.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd suggest we continue on the path we're on unless
Yeah.
we,
Does Adam need a recommendation from the board or you to keep moving forward with that or no?
no, our
Okay.
plan is to continue moving forward.
Okay.
If you have a recommendation contrary to that, then I'd say, yeah.
You know, we need to know what phases, like that's something, you know,
Yeah.
if we don't have enough funding, like what the phases would be, and
Right.
that's the stuff that we have to figure out, and that way we can keep moving forward.
So,
There are no other questions or issues to be raised on that agenda item? The municipal gymnasium windows?
That's been lingering as well, those two projects. I did have a conversation with Brian Hogan. He runs the basketball league downstairs, and he was suggesting, because basketball season is now beginning, that we hold off until the springtime in terms of project start construction. That doesn't mean we can't bid it over the winter months, but he's suggesting that we wait till the spring till we actually build it. It would conflict with his basketball season.
It would conflict with our heating bill.
yeah.
Well, just throwing it out there.
This has been going on for
Yeah, it's strictly a time issue, Shirley, you know,
Yeah.
between the workload I have with planning board.
I
I know
understand.
Adam's busy with his stuff. It's not that we're intentionally putting it off, it's, you only have so many hours in the day.
Mhm.
And then, you know, things rise to the top and,
Sure.
Realistically, it'd probably be around springtime anyways, but I would think that we would move forward on it if the funding's there.
I don't see a problem with moving forward with the bid documents and then soliciting, you know, if we're going out for engineering, or if we're not, then we're just gonna, you know, try to put something together in-house and put it out to bid. So, you know, I plan on continuing, get to the point where we have bid documents and then we'll set the schedule.
All right. I didn't know quite how far we were, so you just mentioned that, but it's fine.
Yeah. When the link works on the agenda, that's how far we are.
All right. Thank you.
But for the record, I clicked on my phone email, and when I tried to click on the link, it didn't link.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it went to the pavement RFP we have
Yes.
up.
Even mine did too, I looked at it.
As I was explaining to Shirley,
That was around 7 o'clock he was explaining it.
Well,
That-
had I been timely, of course.
no.
I might know what's going on.
Yeah.
But that would make everything so less interesting.
Yeah, but I
Don't
was,
make me
I was
take you behind your
trying to
chair.
find this information
that's an
towards
intentional
last weekend.
That's an intentional redirect because we have a project out to bid and we had an incorrect direction, so I had to basically point to everything to this location, so. Next Monday, we'll change it back, we'll be back to the regular.
Okay. Huh. All right.
Are we at the minutes at this point? I apologize. Did that cover the police department windows also?
No. In your packet, you should, the first and the second page after the agenda should be the advertisement for the invitation to bids. This is draft. And the schedule that George had provided to us for the project. And I know you cannot read the schedule because
Oh,
I can't read the schedule.
I was
Oh,
gonna-
this
I was
tiny
gonna zoom
print?
in.
Yes, correct. So that's what George provided, and I don't know if it was intentionally a 2-point font. But, he's waiting for our final feedback before he puts it out to bid. I met with the police chief, I've been talking to Adam, and it's really in pretty good shape. We have some minor edits, like one of my comments was with the blinds, the current blinds on these windows, because the new windows are going to be very similar to these. They open from the center out, whereas the windows slide from one end to the other. So the blinds, if it's windy, they'll be blowing around. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed in this room, you open one half of the window, the blinds are now making noise and fluttering around. So I asked George to just make it consistent that the blinds in the window, you can open the window and not have half the blinds.
We can get blinds on those windows.
Yes, we included it in the description.
In the scope, and I've given Jean a copy, so she has a copy ahead of time before this goes on. It's on that, yes.
I would think it'd be part of the window system, but.
I asked George to consider the budget, and after meeting with the police chief, there were a number of windows that, if the funding would allow, he'd prefer bulletproof glass. Currently, they don't have bulletproof glass, but there's a few windows, dispatcher, the chief's office, that they would want changed if the funding can allow.
Okay, understood.
So I did relay those comments to George today. I suggested if there's any additional comments, I brought the plans and the specs. I did email those out earlier when the agenda worked last, 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want to take a moment, I'm happy to take feedback tomorrow if you want on the drawings or the bid documents. And I'll relay that to George so we can wrap it up and get going.
So I'm sorry.
No?
Go ahead.
Is that how we should proceed then? If there's any additional comments we would be interested in making, we could submit them to you.
Yeah.
I just have, just as, looking at the project schedule, so the ball went forward as planned. We're looking at, award the contract on September 25th. The work begins on Monday, November 11th. It's kind of cold there. Maybe not, maybe we'll have a warm fall.
Yeah,
Completion December 20th.
I noticed there's different dates in his graphical schedule. So I think he's gonna finalize those dates
Okay, 'cause I'm
after he
looking
gets
on
the
this
final approval, you know, because he submitted these, we've been circulating them internally, and providing feedback to him, so. Is it possible to do work during those months? Yes. And the way we did upstairs, granted it wasn't winter, we would schedule in advance with the contractor. We would potentially vacate certain areas of the building, let the contractor do his work. But as long as we had advance notice, we could, you know, section off an office or an area, let them do what they need to do, and then continue on. Now, certainly areas like the dispatch, you can't do that, but I can mention to him that, you know, there may be a need to have some kind of barrier to ensure that the cold air doesn't affect the workers.
Yeah, and, you know, some kind of hanging
curtain.
petitions and
Yeah.
heating if
Right.
necessary.
I think there's only 13 windows in this
Yeah.
project, and we
It
have
should be
26
really,
up
it
here.
should be a really fast
In,
process.
I mean, to me, the first one you start with would be like the police chief, the dispatch, you know, especially in November before it really,
Yeah.
in case something else happens, and
Right.
then, but their downstairs, I think, is a lot less complicated than upstairs. Here was a lot more complicated with everyone's office, and, you know, if you, down
Sure.
there, I think it's easier to isolate, because they have, the sergeant can use the computers over here, and they can isolate his office for now, and stuff like that, so I think it'll be a lot simpler than up here.
But, maybe mention that to George.
I will, absolutely. Conditions for providing
Any
heat.
surprises that we've gotta do, you know, we have more money to get this.
Like,
On the, what you just said about providing heat, they could potentially put up a little zip wall around, just around where they're working, to isolate the rest of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect, exactly.
You know, like just something simple, because if we specifically say
Right.
heat, you could drastically inflate the cost of what they're doing, but if they just provide a little zip wall protection, simple,
Exactly.
simple little thing. You know what those are? Bill?
Yeah. It's the poly stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just spring-loaded poles, so
Yeah.
you can use
Yeah.
plastic, you
Yeah.
can use almost anything you want. But it's a quick way to isolate that area
Right.
and keeps the dust from going all over the place
Yeah,
as well.
that's a big thing.
I think for the most part, when they did these windows, also, they were working on the outside of the building. They really didn't come into all.
Right, but if you have negative pressure in the building,
Yeah.
it's gonna, as soon as they
Suck
take that
in
out,
there.
it's gonna take this, everything and pull
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
to wherever it's going.
Yeah.
so I believe that leaves us with the meeting minutes of May 29th. I don't know if people have had an opportunity to
Thank
review
you
those.
both.
Thank you,
Gotta
sir.
bring up the
Thank you, Adam.
generators.
Oh, okay, all right,
Oh.
you wanna talk about that?
I just see if there's a
Please.
motion approved.
You want me to do it now?
Yeah.
Okay. In your packet, I have a package that's stapled, and looks like this.
Yep.
This is just to let you know that we are going to move forward with this probably before most of the other projects.
Article
And
10, you mean?
Article 10, the third item down, municipal center backup generator and associated expenses. And I included a few pages, one from the capital request and a quote that was provided to Adam on the generator. So we're just initiating this now, but we're gonna try and get moving as quickly as possible on this. So, I don't know if you wanna add anything, Adam.
So, a town administrator came to me when he realized with the new IT equipment that the town had purchased and everything, that there's no backup generator up here at all for this part of the building. The only backup generator we have is for the police section. So he, was very concerned with it because he wants to make this an operations center during storms and like it's supposed to be, like most towns have it. So he came to me about getting a generator for the whole building, replace the older one that the police department have because they're looking to get one and do one for the whole building. So we reached out to a company. They came through, they walked through the building with me, and he said with the complexity of this building, we have 7 different panels, different decades of electrical, different things, that he said your best bet's to grab the wire as it comes in the building and do the whole building that way. That was his recommendation, so that's the quote that we have right in front of us here. And so basically it's all on where we want to put it, what fuel source we want to use, because I did recommend in my last email to Bill and Matt that we could use the propane, because it's,
Yeah.
out back. We could use that on the pad where the existing police generator sits, and then go through to the electrical panel room. So there's thoughts. I mean, Matt has questions, I have questions, but the first quote that he has there was, I think it was 75,000, in that ballpark area. And I asked for 135 because of everything that happens. You never know what you're gonna find and what,
Right.
what concerns were gonna come up in the future, so.
And you said 75,000?
So,
Yeah, if you read the body of the text there, Shirley, I think it says 70 up there. Not the 35 down at the bottom. The turnkey, which would be what Adam, I think, is talking about.
Exactly, it was like 70.
It's highlighted, so it's got the dark
Something
mark
like-
over it.
Okay, yep.
And that was just one company. A second company didn't, he took the square footage and he just gave me a ballpark figure of 100,000. So that's, we had this company first, the other company didn't come out, so, I had asked for 135. Just hopefully to cover
cover,
everything. Yeah,
hopefully.
cover everything.
Didn't we just do something to that existing generator?
We
The,
extended the
stack,
exhaust.
the
The exhaust stack, and that was one of the things I brought up in my email to them. We could put it right there in the same spot, use the exact same stainless steel exhaust pipe, and, and just basically all you have to do is follow the wires back to where the main power comes into the building and put your panels, which is, yes, it's across the building. But you could use the existing spot, you could use propane, we could figure it out. Right now, the police department just have a diesel, theirs is just a diesel tank, so they have a company come fill it up. So, there's all different options, it depends on which direction we all wanna go.
Is there a location that you could put a large underground propane tank, 500,000 gallon, whatever?
Yeah, probably right out back in the school play, yeah. Yep. And the one thing the reason I brought up the propane tank out here was the discussion for the roof units at one point was to get rid of them and get off of propane for that. So that I would have no use for that propane tank. I don't own it, Osterman's owns it.
Yeah.
So that could be technically a perfect fuel source just for the generator alone.
How big is that tank?
I don't even know on that one.
So you're still looking for more information, or?
No, we're gonna start preparing bid documents
Okay.
to move forward, so hopefully next meeting, we'll try to have something rolling.
And because it's
For that.
over 100,000, it will come in front of this board?
Yes. Yes.
Mike, sorry.
From a maintenance standpoint, the propane would make more sense, no?
Yeah, correct, absolutely. That's why we brought it up when we were talking about, because at first there was discussion about the generator being on the front lawn, and there was a couple questions about noise for the neighbors, and it was questions about, you know, diesel, getting diesel to that location, or, so when we were going through, then Matt had a bunch of notes he sent Bill and I about, going through different items, and I came up with my own list, and I thought about the propane tank, and it's, like I said, I'd rather see it not go to waste than if we needed to change it or add a new one, but at least we have a good location for a pad. We got the exhaust stack that we just paid for, so to me, it seems like a really good location. We can run it across the basement like we did the
Yep.
fresh air intake, and, it seems like we'll reuse a lot of the stuff we already have.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
So we'll be hearing more from you?
You will.
Oh, Mike,
Will the police station get put on our agenda?
I don't know, I think it's just discussed.
It was just discussion.
No,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, I only heard discussion
It
of it.
would
That's-
if it becomes a
that's why
real
I-
project, yeah.
What they, or I heard, maybe it was on TV or something, but they were thinking about the old grammar school?
It was, that's actually where I heard it was a selectmen's meeting.
Oh,
That's where
yeah,
I heard it from, it was
yeah.
on a selectmen's meeting that I didn't know it was discussed about, and that's where I saw it also. So that's when I, kind of triggered me about the fire alarm system and some other things, like,
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess, I was assuming they'd stay there, just some renovations over the years, but yeah, it was in a selectmen's meeting, and it was just discussion between Matt, the police chief, and the selectmen.
The grammar school would make about as much sense as a rotary in front of the goodness store.
No. My God.
Just throwing it out there.
Oh, boy.
Well, think about it. In an emergency, how are you gonna get on the main street? Anyways,
thank you, sir.
no problem. Oh,
No, take credit, go ahead. I'm not following that comment up.
Which I think now leaves the meeting minutes on May 29th.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
nice.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, George, he'll be back. I'll be asking lots of questions. Okay, yeah, the sweater on. Fiberglass windows, what, like impervious or something? Huh?
Same as this.
Same as these? Oh, right, yeah. Oh, these are fiberglass?
Oh, these are wood cased vinyl.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Must be
May
cased wood.
29th, 2019 Building Facility Construction Committee meeting minutes as presented.
Second to motion.
Matter moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Shirley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The matter carries unanimously.
What I was just talking to Bill about, these windows here, he was saying that they were same as these are wood window that's clad on the outside. But in this little thing here, it says fiberglass windows, that's what I was asking them, what they were thinking about on fiberglass. I don't know if that's a typo or.
I'm sure it's a typo.
If there are other issues to be raised, I'm at the point where somebody could move to adjourn.
So moved.
The matter has been moved. Any second?
Did you have something?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just the agenda.
Oh, I apologize.
This was a previous agenda.
Yeah, again, I was out last week. I asked Maria to
Yeah. So-
put out last month's agenda, basically,
Sure.
so
Okay.
there might be some minor
Okay.
technicalities.
All right. Yep.
So I'll second that motion.
Matter has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter carries unanimously. We are adjourned at 10 minutes to 8.